And we're good to go. Thank you for joining us for another HRAI webinar. This time again with a familiar face. You might recognize Caitlin Blundell. She's joined us a number of times to offer her business building insights. And today she's going to take us through management versus leadership, building a team that takes ownership. That's the proper name for it. As always, we will have question period at the end, so you can ask those in the Q&A bar. And Caitlin also asks questions during the presentation, so don't be shy. Get into the chat there and please interact as much as you'd like to. With that, I'd like to bring Caitlin onto the call. There she is. Like I said, we've seen her all before. Thank you so much for joining us again, Caitlin.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. I will let you do your thing. I'll be in the background again. If you'd like to ask questions, please do so in the chat or the Q&A, and have a good show.
Wonderful. Yeah, I will just start my presentation, start sharing. And as I do that, I'll just echo what Matt said. Please do jump in the chat and be active and ask questions. This is always a lot more fun for me and for us all when it's not just one person talking. So please do use that chat. So welcome. And I'm glad you're here because strong management and leadership matters more now than ever. There is so much volatility, especially when it comes to things like tariffs and trade. But across industries and sectors, I've really noticed a degree of indecision, of difficulty taking charge and making decisions. And that's really challenging for anyone trying to run a business. If you're here, it's probably because you have a team that is looking to you to make some of those difficult decisions or to have your hand on the tiller. Doing that well doesn't mean that you need to have all of the answers or that you need to make every decision perfectly. But when you are in a position of leadership, you're leading the ship, right? You're out on deck. You've got your telescope. You're scanning the horizon. You're course correcting. And of course, navigating well also takes strong management. You want to keep and grow your best people and gain productivity and gain efficiency so that you and your team are as ready as you can be for whatever comes. Okay. So I want to start today by busting a couple of myths. Okay. And these are some pervasive myths that I've come across over and over again. The first is that leadership is somehow an upgrade to management. This thinking that management was kind of a big thing in the 70s, 80s, 90s. We had the 1-minute manager, but that's in the past. And now we do leadership, right? Now we've got folks like Simon Sinek and Brene Brown guiding us on how to be a great leader. So leadership starts to sound kind of sexy, right? Like, after all, nobody wants to be a micromanager, right? That dreaded thing. So management somehow becomes a dirty word and people want to learn leadership instead. The truth is, your business needs both management and leadership, but it is useful to make a distinction between them so that you can diagnose where you can improve and act accordingly. The second myth, especially in smaller businesses, is that this needs to be the same person. Often, a manager and a leader are different people. One acts as a visionary, big picture, strategic thinker, and somebody else is handling the execution, right? The day to day and week to week. They are different skill sets. So, having complementary strengths can work really well, even in quite a small business, as long as they are aligned on the destination, right? What are we steering toward? Where do we ultimately want to end up? If you are acting as both a manager and a leader, we just want to be clear about what hat you are wearing at any given time and make sure you carve out the time to do both. Okay. So if they are different from each other, management and leadership, what are we talking about here? We'll define management as a system. Okay. Management is a system built with a goal of creating competency and productivity. We want to use the system of management to manage people, processes, and the organization. So if we're talking about a system, we might be talking about things like a system to set goals and measure your progress towards achieving them. It could be a system around communication and meetings and one-on-ones and performance evaluations. It could be a system around recruiting, onboarding, and ongoing training. Okay. So when there's bad management, it's often because we don't have a system in place to do the heavy lifting. Leadership, on the other hand, is more like an art form. Okay. The goal of leadership is building focused and passionate people, people who increase that discretionary level of effort that goes into like doing above and beyond what they're required to do in their job description. Great leaders tap into that discretionary effort. Great leaders attract, build, and retain great employees. So a great leader is somebody who's often inspiring, often motivating. But I don't know about you guys on the call. I'm a parent, and I've got young kids. We're trying to bring them along and help them with their chores. You can't inspire a child to cook dinner, right? If you focus on motivation alone, but you're motivating somebody who isn't trained or who isn't already kind of rowing in the right direction, they become an even stronger anchor on your growth. Okay. A mentor once told me, if you motivate an idiot, they just do dumb stuff faster. So we don't want to do that. We want to motivate and guide and lead and manage. But if management isn't happening, leadership isn't possible. So for today, I'm going to go at a fairly quick pace. This is a workshop that was initially 2 hours. I've brought it down to 1. So I'm going to talk fast and ask you to think fast. But we do have an opportunity at the end to get in touch and do some work on your unique scenario. Okay. So here's what brought us here today. For those of you who haven't been to one of these sessions before, I'll give a quick recap. I started my first business just as I wrapped up grad school at University of Toronto. And I ran that business for about 8 years, and I learned a lot. But when my second child was born, I had to get off that ride. I had built a roller coaster for myself that I did not have systems in place to run. So at that point, I took a job managing a startup incubator, helping tech entrepreneurs bring their innovations to market. And that is where the light bulb went off for me. I learned that all of these brilliant minds in their own fields had the same questions, issues, and challenges that I'd faced as an entrepreneur. So in that environment of a startup incubator with entrepreneurs in residence and business growth programs, I realized there was a better way to go about building a business. And that most business owners don't actually have everything figured out, right? Especially when it comes to managing and leading people to get the best results. One thing I learned during those years was how to think like a business owner instead of an employee, and that it's worth investing in something if it will help you get there faster or make fewer mistakes along the way. So part of that journey for me was investing in an Action Coach franchise and training as a coach, earning my coaching certification. So now I get to teach and train and coach every single day on the core disciplines of what makes a business truly successful. And that's something I've been doing for the past 5 years or so. I believe that business can be fun, should be fun. It can give you a great sandbox to play in. Owning a business should give you life, not suck the life out of you. So that's why I do what I do. As a coach, I have a couple of goals for our time together today. I want to give you some tips and ideas that you can put into action. I am not a webinar coach. I am an action coach. So I want to give you some stuff you can use to manage and lead your team effectively. My second goal is, as I said, this is like a little short session, but I want to inspire you to want to keep learning and keep developing, figuring out where the gaps are and doing what you need to do to fill them. And finally, I want to help you decide whether coaching is something that is going to be a value add to your business. I can tell you across all industries, investing in coaching and training does give you a massive advantage. Companies with trained managers are more profitable, they're more enjoyable. So I'm going to give you stuff you can do with or without me. And at the end, I'll talk about how to fast track those results in a coaching program. One thing I'll add is that we all know the cliche that the only failure is the failure to participate. It's one of those cliches that's there because it's true. If you're on this webinar and you're also on your phone, on your email, talking to folks in the background, the chances that you will walk away and be able to implement anything of value are pretty slim. So I'd love to have some fun with you today. Like I said, I'd love you to engage and stay active in the chat and ask questions. But more than any of that, I want you to just be fully present, to commit to being here for the next 50 minutes or so and get the learning in. Okay, here are some things I've encountered most often when coaching. Some challenges when it comes to being a manager. The first is this uh, never mind. You know what? Let me just do it myself. I can do it better. I can do it faster myself than getting somebody else to do it for me. It's probably true, right? You probably can do it better or faster yourself than asking somebody else to do it or training somebody else to do it. But if you stay a doer, you can never scale. Okay? Another common challenge is, well, I just answer questions all day, right? The phone's always ringing, the inbox is always pinging. This is like the superheroitis, right? Every time there's a question, they want to jump into action. Okay, it's like the vanilla ice approach to management, right? If you've got a problem, I'll solve it, right? Um, so what does this teach? It teaches that every time there's a question, the manager is going to jump into action, that they are the only one smart enough to fix it. No one else needs to worry about fixing things. And ultimately, it creates a bottleneck. So what we want to do is give everybody else some tools and encourage everyone else to do some thinking as well. The third challenge I hear is, but I don't want to micromanage, right? I don't want to be that manager. I don't want to micromanage. Often we don't, of course, we don't want to micromanage a productive, competent employee in the long term. That's how we lose people. But going too far the other direction is also a challenge, right? It leads to a lack of accountability, a lack of following up, a lack of holding people accountable to what they commit to do. So again, draw on my experiences as a parent, until a child has the competency and productivity, they do need someone to hold their hand and get them there. Don't want to do it for long, just until we build a level of competency and productivity and get to that level of responsibility. Okay. If they're not measured, if they're not held to the standard to be accountable, they won't perform at the same level. So managing is important. So I'm curious, again, in the chat, what is the hardest part of being a manager for you? Is it one of these? Is it something else? Do you have your own challenge? I'd love to know. I'd love to hear from you and know who's here. I know there's all sorts of challenges to being a manager. Managing humans is not an easy thing. Humans are very messy creatures. And that's one of the reasons we want to put a system in place, because the structure of management makes it easier, it makes it more predictable. So I want to start distrust of good intentions and time. Okay, we've got some responses in the chat. Please do keep them coming. I'm going to keep an eye on that as we go. I'll try to speak to the things that come through. All right. So one thing we must do is start by looking in the mirror. Okay. As the manager of the team, you are setting the temperature and the team is picking up on it. You cannot give away something that you don't have. Okay. So we want to lead by example. You can't hold others accountable if you're not accountable yourself. For example, if you say, yeah, systems are important, but you're the one canceling meetings because you're too busy, then that sends a message, right? That's counter to what you want to establish. So we've got to manage ourselves first. So I'm going to talk about a mindset shift that happens when you become a manager. Because when you become a manager, your personal definition of success changes. Success is not from your individual contributions. Instead, it's the results achieved by the team. So often this means that you got into a position of management by being really good at what you do, right? You're self-reliant. And this is a huge shift, because what you did so well that got you here, all of a sudden is not so important anymore, right? Now what's important is getting others to perform at that same level. So the identity iceberg is this idea that humans are like icebergs, and most of who we are is not visible to most people. Okay? People can see what's above the water, the 10% above the water. They can see our actions, our behaviors, and the results that you're getting. But just like an iceberg is 90% below water, people can't see this other stuff that is below the surface. And what lies just below the surface is your skill set. Somebody close to you might be able to see right? Just below the surface of the water, colleagues you've worked with a long time. But it's also true that even you might not know the full extent of your skill set. So here's a common example, right? We can look at a business owner growing their sales team, and they make an assumption that the number one salesperson is going to be an effective sales manager. Okay, they assume that that person will have the skills, and they promote them, but they promote them into failure. And by the way, while they're doing that, they're also robbing their company of the best salesperson they've got. Okay, so there is work to be done to develop those skills. And if that is a familiar picture at your company, you're not alone. A recent survey in the UK showed that, in the past couple of years since COVID, up to 82% of managers are accidental managers who have been promoted with no training. Okay. And that's a big shift. That's a big increase in recent years over where this was even 5-10 years ago. So just underpinning your skills, we have your beliefs. Your beliefs dictate what skills you develop. Okay. And then the skills you develop dictate what behaviors, what actions, and ultimately your results. But we can't develop skills that run counter to what we believe. Henry Ford has this quote that says, whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. Right. And this comes into play because when it comes to management, I could train you on skills all day long, but without strong positive beliefs, it just won't work. An example I saw recently was a coaching client who was really conflict averse. Okay. And this was something they believed that, if they were in conflict with somebody, that is bad. Right. And they want to just get along with everybody. They want to be in harmony. They did not like conflict. They believed that if they were in conflict, the relationship was in trouble. So if that is a belief that someone holds, then they're never going to develop the skill of having healthy conflict, right? Of having and navigating disagreement. You can't develop a skill that violates one of your values. You might have attached a belief to that value, but it doesn't make it true. So we need to kind of interrogate and reframe the belief and the value that it comes from to reframe it. So instead of looking at conflict is bad and damages relationships, we could frame it instead as, well, because I care about these relationships, I'm going to share feedback in a way that is adapted to their personality so that they can use it and advance and reach their goals. Okay, so we're reframing that conflict as something positive. So as a manager, you might spend some time digging into, well, what are my values and where did I get them? And what am I building my belief systems based on? Okay. For companies with multiple owners or many leaders, we also want to check in here and make sure the values that we hold are complementary. For example, if we have two owners in a company and one values teamwork and collaboration, okay, and the other values, we play hard, we compete hard, we win against the odds, we win at all costs. Okay, it's not that those two things can never work out. We've seen that situation play out, but it means that those two leaders have some work to do to spell out how they want the team to interpret those values and make decisions based on them. The deepest part of the identity iceberg is your identity itself. This is anything that is, the story you're telling yourself in your head, usually following words like I am or I'm not. So I just say as a leader of a team, as a manager of a team, pay attention, listen to how you talk to yourself. Your identity has been built over time, and it might take time and effort to shift some of these identity principles, but they are not carved in stone. They are changeable. If we want to change them, we look to the environment, right? Your intake. What are you watching and reading and listening to? Your associations. Who are you hanging out with and spending the most time with? Are they lifting you up? Are they turning you into the most positive version of yourself? And your affirmations, right? That story you tell to yourself. I am this and I am that. Okay, so often the real shift we see being a manager of people, a leader of people, and a business owner, navigating some of the challenges that comes with that starts here. Okay, by looking in the mirror and doing a little bit of analysis of our own identity iceberg figuring out how to unlock different results, right? By looking at our values, beliefs, and the skills we are developing, okay? That kind of change creates huge behavior shifts. So as identity shift, value shift, beliefs around the value shift, and behavior shift, I want to talk about a great resource, a book called Multipliers by Liz Wiseman. It's such an important book. She talks about the characteristics and traits of the best managers, okay, the managers who get incredible results. And these are the people she calls multipliers. She found that the managers who act as multipliers get up to 2 times better results from their teams. Okay, they get double the performance with half the workforce. In contrast to the multipliers, you've got the diminishers. The diminishers use only half of their team's talent, and they leave people exhausted in the process. Okay. Gallup found that managers account for 70% of the variance in an employee engagement score. So when we talk about discretionary effort, who's putting in a little extra, who's going the extra mile, who's going above and beyond and caring deeply about the results, it really comes down to the individual manager. That manager accounts for 70% of the variance in individuals. And most of us who are in a management role, we have no intention of being a diminisher. We want to be a multiplier or to become a multiplier. But most diminishers are accidental diminishers. They have great intentions, but in their efforts to be a great manager, they keep people down. These are the "my door is always open" managers. They are asking for interruptions. They are asking for people to bring in their problems. They're always fixing things and solving problems instead of challenging their team to do that work. They might be a perfectionist, okay? A perfectionist who leaves no room for mistakes, risk-taking, or learning. They might be a fountain of good ideas, okay? But they might not leave space for others to have good ideas as well. So most diminishers are accidental diminishers who start out with the best of intentions. Becoming a multiplier is a skill. I kind of see it like being an athlete. Sure, some people might be predisposed to it, right? Might have some gift naturally. But if you want to be good, you've got to take that and develop it, train it, do something with it. If you've ever been coached by, or if you've ever worked for a multiplier, you have probably felt this effect in action. Okay, they've made these behavior shifts. They bring out the intelligence in others, okay, by making this shift from giving answers to asking better questions. They fundamentally believe that people are smart and can figure things out. They shift from taking responsibility to giving responsibility. They know that people grow through challenge. Instead of taking over, they assist. Okay? They never do anything for people that people can do for themselves. Victims look for rescuers, and rescuers create victims, right? We want to avoid that dynamic. They don't expect perfection. They make space for mistakes. They help others discover, they help others learn, and help them grow. And they're not focused on delegating tasks. Do this, do this, do this, do this. Here's the order, da, 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 da. They might offer a challenge. So they're focused on an outcome. Okay, here is the outcome we're looking for, and I'm going to leave it to you to figure out what tasks and what order. Okay, and they're there to coach, they're there to assist, but they're not abdicating responsibility for the outcome, but they're there as in the back seat as a guide, rather than telling them exactly, spelling it out for them, and doing all of the hard work, heavy lifting, problem solving for them. Okay. Great managers do 2 things very well. They manage in the moment, and they manage through a predictable system. So if we are talking about the moment, we're talking about how we handle mistakes, how we handle ideas, questions, and issues. Okay. So if there is a question or a problem or a mistake, how is that handled? An example of this is maybe something got missed, something got overlooked. Bad questions in that moment could be things like, why isn't this done? Who should have done this? Why are those bad questions? Why and who are asking for excuses? They are asking for blame. Okay. We don't want blame and excuses. We don't want that in our team. We don't want that in our culture. They probably know they've made a mistake. So we want to move forward, get out of emotion, and then deal with it. So a better question would be something that's forward moving. Could be, what do we need to do to get this to the customer? Okay, so now we're not looking at why, we're not looking at who, we're saying, what do we need to do? Even better would be to put a bit of time orientation on this. What do we need to do to get this to the customer in the next 10 minutes? They could even go into a level of detail, okay, to switch the brain out of overwhelm and into problem solving. What are the first two things you need to do to get this to the customer in the next 10 minutes? Okay, we're pushing them to think and solve the problem. We're looking for logic. In a situation where there's high emotion, we want to bring the emotion down so we can bring the logic up. They're always in balance, right? They're always counter to each other. We don't want to escalate the emotion. We want to de-escalate the emotion and crank up the logic. So if we are dealing with a question, maybe somebody comes and says, hey, should we go left or right here? Instead of answering the question, well, let's go left. A great manager is probably pushing some of that thinking back to the person who asked the question. So maybe it's, well, what do you think are the benefits of left? What are the benefits of right? What are the risks associated with going left? What are the risks of going right? And what do you think we should do? Great thinking. I agree. Let's go. Okay, so management isn't in the moment, isn't this idea of, well, my door is always open, come and interrupt me at any time. It's being proactive, getting out and seeing what is happening, and then guiding people through a thought process in order to make the right decision. In parallel to this idea of managing in the moment, the flip side of the coin is developing your management system. Okay, and they work together. If somebody is part of your management system, you're giving them a formula, right? They're learning how to be a great manager from you. And it makes it easier to grow people, to promote people, because you're already giving them the tools right from the get-go. We want this system to do 80% of the work. That means that if we are getting interrupted, if we are getting questions, and if it's not urgent, the answer is bring it to the meeting. Right? Let's talk about it at the meeting. We're going to divert back to the system we have in place. Okay. So it limits interruptions and demands on your time, because you can flip back to the system and lets you make the system do the work. We want to know in advance what happens daily, what happens weekly, what are the communication or meeting rhythms? How do you know what got done yesterday, what got done last week, what didn't? How do you know what everyone's working on and what needs to happen this week? So a basic communication system could be something like having everyone on the team be clear on what their daily list is. What are their top 3 priorities for the day? In the training phase or the onboarding phase, they might need to send this to their manager at the close of the day before for the next day or first thing in the morning. And if you're thinking, wow, that sounds a lot like micromanagement, it's because it is, right? It is because it's what's required when you don't have competency and productivity. It becomes a bad thing when you try to keep that up forever. Another communication rhythm might be a daily huddle or a daily metric that we're trying to achieve. What's our goal for today? On a weekly basis, it might be something like a weekly one-on-one or a weekly team meeting. Again, we can give this a little bit of structure. I really like a lion structure where everybody on the team is thinking about L, last week, what did I get done? I, issues, what are the challenges or roadblocks or obstacles that I need to talk to my manager about? O, what are my opportunities? Either for a new idea I had, a business opportunity, customer said something, I need to remember to recap that for my manager, or personal opportunities, challenges I'd like to take on, something I'd like to learn next. And N is next week. What are my top goals? What's top of my list that I will tackle next week? This is kind of outside the daily rhythm of, responding to customer calls, or, some stuff really is reactive in the day, but we're looking at building overarching skills that kind of link those days together. So lie in last week, any issues, any opportunities, and next week. If we recycle that same structure every week, the next week list becomes the last week list, and it becomes just like a really easy communication cycle. I do focus on calls and meetings. Lots of businesses, especially when you've got text in the field, rely heavily on text and email and WhatsApp, and so much communication gets lost because we lose tone, we lose body language. Those things are great for communicating kind of simple ideas, but so much can also get lost. So we do want to carve out some time for bigger picture face-to-face conversations as well. Now, management, remember, is the system, right? Leadership is the art form. So if somebody isn't competent and productive, they need management. But when they've hit that bar, at that point, we can start to multiply that with leadership. Leadership is what keeps everyone focused, okay? Not in the day-to-day, week-to-week. I'm talking over a longer time cycle, like month to month, or even year to year. The leader sets the vision, mission, culture, and goals. And those things don't happen by committee. They don't happen by mistake. Every organization has a culture. Every organization is reverse engineering from some future destination, right? And acting accordingly. So the best thing you can do is be really intentional about setting it, okay? As goes the leader, so goes the company. I'm sure some are thinking, well, this sounds very corporate. This sounds very business school. Do I really need to write down my culture? I don't think that's going to do much for us. We're a small team. It will. Okay, it will. It's a structure that is used and abused in the corporate world, and can be honed to a finely tuned decision-making engine for a small business. If we want to talk about employees who act like owners, employees who think like owners, here is where that comes from. It's a shared vision. Okay, it's understanding a culture, using our points of culture to make decisions. It's understanding what are the priorities, what are the goals, what are we steering towards. So a great leader inspires and enrolls their team to follow them. They communicate their vision for a bright, positive future. They listen well. They're often fun. They're personable. Unlike being a manager, a leader isn't a role. Okay, it's not something that you just assign somebody to do. Anybody on the team can be a leader. Okay, who has influence? Who are people following? And if you are looking to increase your leadership skills, then we're looking at how do you increase your influence? How well are you influencing the people who are reporting to you, who are in your org structure? If you can get passionate, focused people who are enrolled in your vision and committed to your goals and your culture, then you have done your job as a leader. This is another kind of mindset tool that I think helps make these, clarifies these differences, clarifies these points between management and leadership, because they address different symptoms, okay? Management and leadership are deployed depending what problem you're solving. Management issues are behaviors. So things like missed deadlines or a job that's not done up to par, whereas leadership issues are more like just a negative attitude, apathy or indifference, a culture of, I don't need to do that, that's not my job, or just missing the point, right? You've had 100 conversations and you don't think you can be any more clear, and somehow the point is not getting across. So for the point of power shows where are we standing in terms of our attitude to a given issue or just in the day-to-day, right? Below the point of power, we have blame, excuses, and denial. Okay, how we're reacting and responding to a new situation, we can choose to be above or below the point. If we're sitting below the point, basically we're powerless. We have no agency to affect that situation, right? Well, it's the economy, it's the government, it's the weather, it's our customers are undercutting us, it's our competition is undercutting us, our customers are all idiots, my team is sucks, right? These are all blame and excuses and denial. We want to get above the point of power. So if you're sitting below the point of power, that is a management issue. We want to move above the point of power into ownership, accountability, and responsibility. And this is where leadership kicks in, right? Once we get people who are accountable and responsible and get them to think like owners, not in terms of wallet share, right? It's not that we're their ownership in the sense of having a share in the company, but in terms of taking ownership over their own behaviors and actions and results. Okay. Ownership in the head, not in the wallet. So taking a moment to reflect on your team. What is your style of management creating? What is your style of leadership creating? If your culture is above or below the point, what are the things that you are doing, either that has a positive effect or a negative effect, that is keeping you there? And give you a breadcrumb trail to follow to think about what to do next. Great leaders do three things. They attract great people, they build great people, and they retain great people. Fact is, great people don't want to work in average companies, right? Great people don't want to work for average leaders. When we spoke earlier about multipliers, multipliers are talent magnets. A players want to work for people who have this reputation for growing, for challenging their people, for helping them develop, helping them build. And this is, starts from the beginning, because if we are not attracting great people, the cost of a bad hire can be enormous. In a management role, the cost of a bad hire can easily be 15 times their annual salary, right? By the time you've lost productivity, lost engagement, had to let them go, had to go out and rehire, retrain. Even for a more entry-level employee, the cost can easily be equal to their annual salary. If you have a bad hire who's not providing great customer service, who's not a great team player, who's not communicating well, who's not engaged, right? And again, then we need to go through a process of rehiring somebody who's a better fit. The cost in time and money is enormous. So instead, we want to attract great people, and that starts with having great managers in place and great management systems in place, and then giving them the leadership tools to allow those people to be inspired and be motivated. If you build your people, you build your business. If you don't build great people, they can't build your business. Costco is an example. They pay their employees 70% more per hour than Sam's Club, right? Their American competitor. Yet they need almost 40% fewer employees per dollar of revenue. That's because their employee turnover rate after 1 year is 6%, where Sam's Club is 21%. So they are paying their employees more per hour, but they're saving on recruiting, training, and development. So an exercise here for the leaders in the audience would be to define, who is your ideal team player? Okay, what are the character traits that you would write down on paper? Who is your ideal team player? And then on the other side of the page, what kind of leader does that person want to follow? Okay, this forces us to ask ourselves, am I attracting A players? Do I deserve A players? Because the reality of business is you don't get the people you want, you get the people you deserve. Okay? If you have a team in place already, you can ask them on how do they perceive me as a leader? On a scale of 1 to 10, how do you rate me as a leader? It's just data, right? Just knowledge and data to be able to make some next steps. And then we want to play chess, not checkers. And what I mean by this is you don't coach, lead, or manage a team. You coach, lead, and manage individuals. And each individual needs a different approach. So with each individual, you want to be asking, what have I communicated or not communicated that's led to this outcome? Communication is a mirror. Okay. So true communication is what is reflected back to you. If you've ever been in that space where you think you've been crystal clear about something, you've said it, it was clear in your head, and then the person you spoke to got a totally different idea. They ran with it in a different, unexpected direction, where they didn't do what you thought they were going to do next. Usually, it's because the communication faltered somewhere between the speaker's mouth and the listener's ear. And the secret to great communication is measuring at the listener's ear. Okay, as the speaker, we can't measure success by what you think you said. We measure by your success of your communication by what they actually heard and how they interpreted it. So we want to stay above the point of power, right? Stay in that place of agency and think, how can I say this in a way that's going to be best received? Okay. If you've ever given somebody a gift that they didn't use, you know, it's like think of your coaching or your advice or your feedback as a gift. If you've given them that gift and they haven't been able to receive it, you haven't given them any value. It's only valuable if they want it, accept it, and apply it. So leadership is not about you knowing the answer. It's this need to adapt your style of communication, even if it pushes you far outside your comfort zone. DISC is one framework to start thinking about different communication styles and how to communicate in a way that to meet people where they are and be well received, right, at the listener's ear, not at your mouth. So DISC gives us 4 different communication styles. The D is the dominant. The dominant is somebody who tends to be very fast paced. They're most likely, writing their emails in bullet points. There's not a lot of small talk. They're very direct. They're very decisive. And if you give them a task, they are going to get it done. The I is a communication style that's more of an influencer. So more social, more people focused maybe than task focused. They are able to chat with everybody. They want to bring everybody along with them. They're more like the social butterfly. They can still work at a fast pace, talk at a fast pace, but they're much more people oriented than task oriented. Okay, the S is the steady side of communication. This person is people focused, but not so fast paced, right? They're more stable, supportive, and sincere. And the C is the compliant side or conscientious side. This is the person who, if there's a case study, they will read the case study. If there is a fact sheet, they will read the fact sheet. If there's an instruction manual, they will read the instruction manual. They are more cautious. They dot every I, cross every T, more detail oriented. And again, more on the side of having tasks and working through a process or a system to complete the tasks, and a little maybe less people oriented. Okay, so the I's and C's are more people, the D's and C's are, the I's and S's people, D's and C's tasks. Okay. If you want to put a face to all of these, the D would be somebody like a Simon Cowell, right? Not going to sugarcoat it, going to tell it exactly how it is. The I would be more like a Jim Carrey, out there kind of getting along with everyone, making everybody happy, making everyone's day. The S might be more of like a Mother Teresa figure. She's out there kind of supporting, being stable. She's not going to make any sudden moves. And the C is more like the Bill Gates persona. Okay, just will take in, absorb information like a sponge, and then work very systematically and deliberately to get the job done. Which of these are you? Right? We all have our own blend. Nobody's all the way one or all the way another, right? We all have our own kind of recipe that makes up who we are at home or at work. But what we want to do as managers and leaders of people is start to recognize our natural instincts and start to recognize the natural instincts of the people we work with. And then it's our job to be a chameleon, to recognize and adapt so that if we are leading a high I, we become a high I. If we're leading a high C, we are giving them exactly what they need and giving them all the background and giving them the full story so that they are comfortable moving forward. Okay. This is the way we move outside of our own comfort zone, move into the frame of reference of the people who we are working with, and ultimately get a better result. Okay. All right, that is a jam-packed session for today. I hope you got some tips and ideas that you can take away and use. I can tell you that improving your management and leadership skills does all sorts of great things for a business, not least of all, it increases your profit margins. So I hope you walk out of here today with a stronger business that is more profitable and that's more enjoyable, right? And gets results faster and more efficiently. So if that's you, if you just want a few ideas, you're not wanting to talk about coaching, that is fine. But if you are thinking, okay, how do we put this into action? Here is what I want you to do next to execute. This is offer for HRAI. I'm putting a 2-week coaching trial forward. So if you're interested in getting together for a couple of meetings, talking about your unique scenario, I would like to help you with that. I can put a link in the chat and send it over to Matt as well for distribution. But I hope you come on and meet with me a couple of times. No obligations, no strings attached.
Thank you so much, Caitlin. We will definitely send that link out to everyone who registered and everyone who attended today.
Perfect. And
you can...
I'll just say one more thing, whether or not you decide to go for the coaching trial, I would love to stay in touch. I publish every week a newsletter called The Extra Mile. This has got weekly business strategy advice. It also has updates on any other upcoming events for HRAI and outside of HRAI as well. So I encourage you to stay in touch here. The link is my name, CaitlinBlundell.substack.com. Love to see you there. And I think that's it. Thank you very much, Matt, for letting me chat with all you guys today.
Oh, the thanks go to you. This has been some really insightful information. Your contact information is on the screen. This video will be up on the YouTube page as well. And we will follow up with emails to everyone who attended with the link. Are we able to share this presentation as well, Caitlin, do you think? Or
I don't typically share out the slides because there's not much on them, but but I know you do post on YouTube, so I'd encourage people to go on YouTube and come to me with any other kind of specific questions or follow-ups.
Absolutely, it'll be there to rewatch so you can catch the slides there. Okay, well, as always, Caitlin, thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you again.
Absolutely, thanks.
And thanks to everyone who attended as well. Check HRAI's webpage and the events page for upcoming webinars, and reach out if you'd like to put one of your own. Just reach out to me. Until then, have a great day, everyone. Cheers.